You and Blake have been married for?
Oh God, don't do this to me. 4 years. First, well, I was obsessed with this girl, Fiona Gorczynski. She used to take the bus the opposite way of my actual home, and I would get on the bus just to sit next to her.
Wow.
For 45 minutes the wrong way. I love it when you're young, it's so cute. When you're older, it's just stalking.
Hi, besties. The number one rule and the number one piece of advice that I received as an independent journalist and someone that has a public platform and also in court when you're dealing with a narcissist was don't take the bait. Don't take the bait and act above board, because anything that you do and say will be used against you by the narcissist, twisted and made it to make you look like you're a horrible person. And over time, that narrative will rub off on the court, the judge. They might take a sympathetic view of you if they hear it enough that your person that you're suing is a terrible, dangerous person. And in the case of Blake Lively, she has been meticulously, through her filings, painting a narrative about Brian Friedman, Wayfair, Justin Baldoni, and all of these parties as being dangerous and abusive and horrible, and that she's a victim of them, and that all of this that's happening online is a product of them, and that their lawsuit is a retaliation, and the fact that they even fought back and they're defending themselves is them being and using the docket to harm her. And because of the speed of the litigation and the resources that she seems to have, which appear to be unlimited, it seems that there's no amount of money that Ryan Reynolds isn't willing to spend right now to just annihilate the people in his life that he's mad at, with Blake Lively being his tool, right? She's the shield. This lawsuit really doesn't exist. She's the face of it, but it's Ryan's lawsuit. That's my opinion. And when you're on the receiving end of a psychopathic narcissist, there will be times when you make mistakes and you falter. And there have been times through this litigation that they have pounced on the tiny mistakes that are made by Wayfair, and then they get scolded by the judge. And there are times when Wayfair doesn't react and doesn't seek sanctions or doesn't ask for discipline and is constantly on the defense. They're incapable of fighting offensively. And if they were more aggressive, they could equally have Miss Lively's motions sanctioned or struck. But they're not. They're not doing that. They're not striking anything. And that approach could be because of Justin's passive approach in life, where he doesn't want to fight back and he doesn't want to be aggressive. That passive do no harm aspect of his faith, the faith of all of three of the people involved in this litigation, where they do not want to be aggressors. And yet, anytime they are made to look like an aggressor, Blake pounces, okay? And so I told you earlier this week that it would not surprise me if the judge struck the deposition transcript, because honestly, the whole transcript didn't need to be uploaded. And I've truthfully never seen the whole deposition transcript uploaded like that. Generally, when you're discussing something that happened at the deposition, you will share like 2 or 3 pages of whatever it is that you're referencing for that motion or the response. But it's very infrequent that you would see an entire deposition that is attached as an exhibit. So I said I wouldn't be surprised if they struck it and that they have to refile just the 2 pages or whatever it is. And the judge did agree, and they struck it. And they said that Wayfair has a history now of using the docket to abuse Blake Lively, thus making her look like a victim. And, there's something called like reactive, when you're reacting to abuse and you lash out. I've seen sometimes That's the response from Wayfarers. Like they get pushed into a corner, push, 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 and then they do something. And then Blake and Ryan just wait for them to make a mistake and then they pounce. And then Blake and Ryan aren't working with the same baseline of do no harm. They want to harm. And so they're being very aggressive and they're getting stuff in their favor. Do I agree that Wayfair is misusing the docket? Absolutely not. I think they are in a very difficult position. So the judge in the case that said the letter broadly asserts that there is no evidence the Wayfair parties, Brian Friedman or his firm, have participated in a smear campaign against Lively. For support, the letter quotes one fragment of one sentence from her deposition. In the deposition, she testifies that she believes that the Wayfair parties have retaliated against her for reporting harassment by engaging in an ongoing smear campaign, but she appropriately refuses to reveal information disclosed to her in confidence by her counsel. How would she need to get the information from her counsel? She would know point blank if she was retaliated against, but regardless. The letter also includes an attachment and the entire uncertified 292-page transcript. She now moves to have it struck. She contends that they've done it in order to advance a false narrative. And he says the court agrees that the inclusion of the entire deposition transcript served no purpose, no proper purpose, and it grants the motion to strike. They have the inherent power to manage their own affairs as they achieve the orderly disposition of the cases. So he's going against his entire other rulings. He's circumventing what he's prior ruled. His own words he is ruling against. The court must therefore protect the judicial process from being co-opted to ensure the dockets are not used to gratify private spite or promote public scandal. The attachment of the entire 300-page deposition, after citing only 2 pages of it in the letter, served no proper litigation purpose and instead appears to have been intended to burden Lively as a result the court to invite public speculation and scandal, even if the cited deposition portions were relevant or provided support for the Wayfair parties' arguments, both of which are far from clear. The Wayfair parties have not even attempted to argue that the entire deposition was relevant, nor could they. They really can't. I don't know why they didn't just put the 2 pages in. I've never seen someone attach the whole deposition. The conclusion is inescapable that the Wayfair parties filed gracious amounts of irrelevant pages so that if Lively moved for continued sealing of the irrelevant pages, Wayfair could then use Lively's response for their own public relations purposes. The court has not only the power, but also the responsibility to step in. So he's believing that Wayfair is going to say that she doesn't want her testimony public and she's afraid of the truth. He says that their responses are now unpervasive. He says this action follow a pattern of using filings on the docket as an opportunity to litigate this case in the press rather than the court. The court has already stricken from the record prior filings made by Wayfarers for improper purpose of inviting a press uproar. The court has likewise disregarded as improper attachments to other filings. They say that her deposition transcript is not abusive, but he says that it's whether their filing of it was abusive or improper. And he's not saying it was abusive. He's just saying it was irrelevant and improper. He says it's not routine for parties to attach an entire confidential deposition transcript when citing only limited portions of the transcript involving only a few lines of the text in order to put the other side and the court to the burden of justifying continuing sealing of it. So he unredacted the one sentence of what she said, and then he just struck deposition from the docket. So, I don't know what their justification was for the whole deposition. Maybe it could have been that Blake had just dumped 2,000 pages on them of stuff for motions to compel, but they don't fight that. They don't fight it. They don't tell the court, this is obscene. This is ridiculous. I can't believe she would do that. They don't ask for it to be struck. They go with it passively, not aggressive like Blake's legal team. So what was the sentence that she said in her deposition? Upon questioning by Freedom at her recent deposition, she admitted that the only ongoing smear campaign about which she has personal knowledge involves a retaliatory lawsuit and the press that you, Friedman, have done and the statements that you have made about me and my character. It is so hard to be in a litigation with someone like Blake. It is so exhausting. It is going to put you at your worst. It is going to put the lawyers at the worst. The amount of gamesmanship and abuse that people are receiving from Blake's attorneys cannot be underscored or understated, because having my attorneys and my legal counsel go through it, I know what people are experiencing. I know the gaslighting that's happening. I know that they're making you look like the devil, that you are dangerous, that you are evil. And it takes a toll on not only the plaintiffs or the defendants here, but it takes a toll on the attorneys to be on the receiving end of counsel that don't want to play nice, that don't want to cooperate, that don't care to have meaningful negotiations. But instead, it's you're going to do things my way or else. And when you have counsel that acts like that, it's a bad experience for everyone. Everyone. And it's all the people that are involved here that have had to deal with Blake's attorneys are having the exact same experience. So I would just imagine that Wayfair is exhausted. They are fatigued and they have been maligned and they are constantly being viewed and, disparaged in the press. The Lively is using the docket to file disparaging and abusive filings as well, but they don't ask for strikings of her documents. And I mean, I was even at a point this week where I wanted to correct the record because my name was dragged into this by Perez Hilton when he shared a screenshot of my Instagram talking about the subpoena being withdrawn against me. And when I first saw it, I was a little bit upset because, first of all, statements I make outside of the court, in my work, on my social media, aren't meant to be a part of this case in terms of like me telling my followers, listen, they withdrew the subpoena. It was illegal. I still spent all this money. Right. And he used it to say that like she's abusing the process and she's subpoenaing people for no reason, which I totally understand, like why he used it, but he didn't really provide context or really share anything else beyond a screenshot of what it was, which then gave them an opportunity to say, well, this is unverified, and just because she subpoenaed this person doesn't mean that it was wrong or bad or whatever, and then that made me feel like I need to defend myself because, first of all, they're acting like what I said was unverified. It wasn't it was verified. And then them saying that, just because she subpoenaed this person doesn't mean, she abused the process. I would say she absolutely did. And that's what my legal team felt she did. And if she didn't if she knew it was such a valid subpoena, she would not have withdrawn it, a day before we were set to file our motion to quash. Right. So this week, there's been this fatigue by some people, and some of the content creators that have responded in court have been very terse with their words. And Perez Hilton filed 4 documents in court, and some people are very mad at him. And all I'm going to say is that I'm sure he's been very stressed out, and this has been taken a big mental toll on him. And he has like people that have millions of bajillions of dollars coming down on him with and they're pointing to him as being the reason why all of this is happening. And that's not fair at all because he's not doing anything wrong. But then, his response to the court only just solidifies and makes Blake look like the victim, because what he's telling the court doesn't, it strengthens her case that these people out here are unhinged, or, they have no respect, or they're just really being demeaning and disparaging. So the judge had to then respond to it. And he said, like, he had to remind people that you can't behave this way in court. And then that got some creators mad at Perez. And listen, it's not my job to police Perez. It is not my job to say that Perez shouldn't do this. It is not my job or my opinion to tell him how to live his life. I am not of the belief that I am served best in my position when I start criticizing and going after other people. Every time I try to respond to someone, it always goes bad. And so anytime I try to defend myself against what people say about me, I end up looking like I'm being I'm like retaliating, or I'm going after someone. So I really don't get in the middle of this kind of stuff. So I just want to read to you what he filed into the court. I also want to make clear that Perez has gone out of his way to defend me, to stick up for me, to stand up for me when Stephanie Jones has tried to bully me, when her lawyers have tried to bully me. He has gone out of his way to reinforce my reporting and to strengthen it and share that he also was receiving the same reports and his sources were saying the same thing. He has been a good colleague to me, and so I will not disparage him in the sense of yelling or screaming or getting on him for this. I want to be clear. He has always been good to me. So this is a letter that was sent on the 6th by him. Hey, Judge Lyman, it's me again. I feel like we're starting to be pals with how much I'm writing you, but I know you're still much friendlier with Blake Lively's counsel. This letter is not a response to the motion to compel just filed in your court by the disgraceful Ezra Hudson. This letter is a request for sanctions against Hudson, which your sexy and smart self has every right to impose on that clown based on your inherent powers in this court. It pains me that I cannot respond to the motion to compel, but unless I'm given the unredacted version of that and all the exhibits unredacted as well, then I'm afraid this letter as a non-response will have to suffice. I only speak for myself. I have no knowledge if Mr. Valdoni or any of the Wayfair defendants seek to move to keep sealing all of the documents submitted by Ms. Lively's publicity-seeking lawyer, Ezra Hudson. Additionally, while I'm not responding to the motion to compel, I want to remind everyone yet again that last week I already filed in Nevada District Court a motion to quash this burdensome and unethical subpoena that is seeking my privileged and protected information as a journalist. I am joyfully representing myself in Subpoena Gate without an attorney, which I have every right to do so. And though I haven't spent more than a minute or two preparing this letter, my research shows me that Ms. Hudson is misrepresenting the truth. Yet again, another reason why you should sanction that disgraceful attorney and award me attorney's fees. My rudimentary findings are consistent with what I already know, that you know that what all of Vince Gammer's legal team knows, that the appropriate venue to quash the subpoena is in Las Vegas. That's where I live, where I work, where I served, what blah, 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 blah. Okay, so in that letter, he called the judge sexy. He disparaged the attorney by calling her publicity-seeking lawyer, by referring to Blake as the Van Zandt scammers legal team, that she is misrepresenting the truth and that she is a disgraceful lawyer, disgraceful Ezra Hudson. And I can just say that without a doubt, you cannot file that in a court without a response. You can't disparage and call names and use that kind of language in a court filing. You're expected to have decorum in the court and be respectful, even if you're angry and frustrated. And so, when I read that, I was like, okay, he's probably going to get in trouble for this. And then he sent another letter, which says, this is to inform the court that I've not been served with a copy of the communications by Subpoena Serena, also known as Blake Lively. I've received no materials whatsoever. Also, this is to put in writing that I will comply with the court's protective order regarding the use of confidential discovery material. Additionally, I have no interest in responding to the plantation-loving princess's opposition in my motion for a protective order. I do not believe that this court can rule fairly. I fully expect you to once again side with Miss Lively, as I believe you are biased. Therefore, I won't waste any more time than I already have responding to her opposition for a protective order. And finally, with regards to her cross motion to compel, the court knows that I have no standing on this matter. The appropriate venue to litigate the subpoena against me is in the U.S. Federal District of Court in Nevada, where, as I have informed counsel and this court last week, I filed a motion to quash, blah, 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 blah. So there he called Blake Subpoena Serena and plantation-loving princess. And all of this, just helps Blake because it looks like she's being bullied. He's obviously very stressed out. I understand. She filed a docket, on the docket, pictures of his kids. And so I understand why he's feeling this way. This is why having a lawyer is so important. This letter was sent on the 5th of August, so it's the last one in the docket, but this one was sent on the 5th, and it says, just saw docket 561 where the laughable Ezra Hudson informs you that she is submitting a motion to compel, to which I respond, WTF and LOL. I'm not sure what law school Miss Hudson attended, but she is serving up first-class buffoonery. If Miss Hudson wants to attempt to compel me, she has to address this matter in Nevada, the appropriate venue where this issue has already been taken up by the district court there. I have not yet read this motion, and if it has not been made public by this time, I write this letter to you, but I'm very much looking forward to the laughs from Blake Lively's reprehensible attorneys. Okay, so here's the thing. I understand that he is so upset because the response that they made for him, they really did spend like 20 pages disparaging him, calling him all kinds of, legal names and discrediting his work and, calling him out for using names like parody names against her and making it sound like he's literally doing this for Wayfair, right? And he flatly denies that. And he did a video today and or yesterday and said, like, I'm just trying to show the court that I'm not connected to them in any way. I'm just doing this intentionally so the court knows that I'm doing this on myself and myself alone. I'm not working for Wayfair. This is me. Of course, if I had Brian Friedman, he would have told me not to file any of these documents. I think he could have done it in a completely different way. But again, that's not my place to tell him what to do. But the judge then responded. And it says, recently, a number of filings in this case have included intemperate language and personal attacks against parties, their counsel, and the court. All individuals filing documents in this case, whether represented or not, are advised that they shall not in any submission to this court use language that is disrespectful of the parties, their counsel, or the court. This includes, but is not limited to, using demeaning nicknames for parties or their counsel, or accusing the court of being in words or in substance biased, criminal, or corrupt. In other words, parties addressing the court in writing should use the same respectful language that they would use in person in open court. For avoidance of all doubt, this order does not prevent any party or non-party from vigorously arguing on behalf of their clients, or when appearing pro se on behalf of themselves, or from asserting publicly that a decision of this court may or any other court was wrongly decided, or that an argument promoted by a party or non-party is incorrect. Failure to comply with this order and using such language in any court submission may subject the infringing party at risk of contempt. So criminal contempt is what I believe he's talking about, and contempt is when you insult the judge or the parties in the case, or you disrupt the court proceedings. And insulting a judge is like the easiest way to get charged with contempt and thrown into jail. So Perez has said that he will calm down, but this order now serves basically for everyone. And it really puts Perez in an uncomfortable position because now anything that he says to the court is going to be like teased apart with a fine-tooth comb by Blake in an effort to try to get contempt charges against him. And I'm sure he's well aware of that. And I know that he said he will calm down now. So there's that. But he also said that he wouldn't be responding to her cross motion for a motion to compel. And the judge today ruled that he says, Lively argues, among other things, that by filing a motion for a protective order in this court, he has subjected himself to this court's jurisdiction for purpose of the motion to compel. She filed her cross motion on August 5th and served the motion on him on August 6th and directed Hilton to respond to Lively's cross motion within 7 days of service by August 13th. The court is aware that Hilton has filed a motion to quash in the U.S. District Court of Nevada, and that he has taken the position that he will not otherwise respond to her cross motion in this court. However, Lively has a right to have her cross motion decided. Accordingly, in the absence of a response by Hilton to the cross motion on or before the 13th or such extended date that the court might grant Hilton if he files a motion for an extension on or before August 12th, the court will consider her motion to be fully submitted and will decide it without the benefit of an opposition brief. Given his pro se status, and the special solitude of that status is owed, the court advises him that should he fail to respond to her cross motion, and should the court determine that it has jurisdiction to compel, that he risks waiving any arguments that her motion is improper. This means that if he fails to respond, he runs the risk of waiving arguments regarding the subpoena, even if he has separately raised those arguments in the District of Nevada. Blake is pouncing on the fact that he came to this court and asked for a protective order to claim that the court has jurisdiction over this motion or over the subpoena. And so she's arguing that because he came here and sought this order here, we have a right to ask him to comply here. It's in his best interest, truthfully, just to respond and file the whole motion in the district court there with the same arguments that he had. He claims he's a journalist and that he has privilege, and his motion to compel that he filed in court in Nevada was really well put together. So I hope he just files a response there and he doesn't let her win this on a technicality because she has attorneys that, are trying to outsmart him. On my social medias, people are pretty divided on Perez, and I, again, want to just say something. It has never served me to disparage other creators. When I have reached breaking points with certain creators, whether it's in this genre, like this demographic or this community, it has always upset my subscribers. It has made them angry. They do not like me to say negative things about other creators that they watch. And I respect that. And I respect my audience when they tell me that. And so I will not disparage someone for how they act or what they do in court. And I completely empathize and understand the stress that he's under. I get it. I'm a mom too, and I understand what it's about. He's a dad. He's stressed and he's being dragged into something that he doesn't need to be in because Blake Lively has a vendetta. And he has a right to tell the court how he feels. And did he do it in a way that I would do it? No, but he's Perez Hilton and he always does what he wants. If we've learned anything about Perez over the years, he does what he wants. And I'm not going to be a creator that tells other creators what to do because that has happened so much in this community. And it's become, to me, a turnoff when you have content creators going on their channels telling people this is how we're supposed to be, this is what we're supposed to do, this is, dictating what we're supposed to be doing as reporters. And I refuse to do that. I refuse to do that. Everyone has a right to manage their platforms the way that they see fit, engage in their audiences the way that they see fit, manage their legal cases the way that they see fit. It is not my job to tell anyone or admonish others or come down on people in a case like this. And I think when people are doing that, it's taking away from the story itself and from the case itself. And Perez is not in a position that anyone should envy. And what she's trying to do to him is wrong. And anyone at their breaking point has a right to say what they say. And he has said he will not act like this again. So do that with you will. But the notice itself is concerning because now anyone that says anything that is possibly, suggesting that this has been a biased situation is now on notice that you could possibly be thrown into jail on contempt charges. So unfortunately, it puts a lot of people on notice, and that's what pisses me off because Blake is the one that's abusing the system, and then everyone is reacting to her abuse, and then she gets to come out of it and look and say, hey, see, look at how abused I am. It's the sick game of the narcissist. So what are your thoughts about the biased judge? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.